Hello, and welcome to Jersey Matters. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I'm Larry Mendte. On this week's show, New Jersey has played a big role in finding a COVID-19 vaccine. We'll learn more about the Moderna trial from the doctor who ran the clinical trials at Rutgers. And we'll talk with the New Jersey doctor who's looking for volunteers for the AstraZeneca vaccine trials. Congressman Jeff Van Drew held on to his seat in a tough South Jersey race. Our Veronica Dudo spoke with the newly re-elected congressman. And this year, we need Christmas lights more than ever before. We'll check in with one of New Jersey's biggest displays that is being put up right now. But first, my interview with Dr. Shobha Swaminathan, Associate Professor at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School and Principal Investigator at the Moderna Phase 3 vaccine trials. Doctor, thanks so much for your time. Everybody is very excited about the Moderna study, the Pfizer study as well. And you have two vaccines that may possibly be available soon. Can you talk about how soon?
Thank you, Larry, for having me on the show. The timing for when the vaccine will be available will really depend on how long it takes for the FDA to review the information that both Pfizer and Moderna will be submitting to them. So the way the process would be is both companies, and any company that finds that their vaccine appears to be effective and safe, will submit their data to the FDA for the FDA to fully review that. Once the FDA reviews that information, then they will provide guidance as to who they think the vaccine will initially be approved for through what's called an emergency use authorization, or EUA. The EUA determines who will get the first wave, and then we can figure out how that will work. So it may be by the end of the year, we hope, based on what it takes for FDA to review the data.
I would think that they're going to try to do this as quickly as possible. When it does roll out, it'll just be for emergency use only, right?
That is correct.
And so that's what we're talking about by the end of the year. The general population won't see this until next year. Yes,
that's correct.
You played a role in this study. You've got to be excited about what's happened. Your study, has it ended?
So enrollment for the study, we were one of the sites for the Moderna vaccine study, and enrollment for the study ended just under a month ago at this time. But participants continue to be followed for safety and efficacy analysis moving forward. At the current time, the protocol estimates that participants will be followed for up to 2 years.
What do you make of the fact that Pfizer came out and said that their effective rate was 90%, Moderna said 94.75, Pfizer came out and said 95%. That's being made a big deal of in the news and on social media especially. Should we care about that?
I think we should be excited that we have two highly effective vaccines that will likely be available for the public sometime next year. That's what I'm excited about. You know, before the vaccine study started, we were hoping for efficacy rates higher than 60%. And at this point, efficacy rates of 95% for both these studies are outstanding. And I think we should be so fortunate to have something so efficacious hopefully available for the public fairly soon. And that's what we should focus on. There will likely be other vaccines that hopefully will be as efficacious, because at the end of the day, what we will need is multiple safe and effective vaccines to really meet the global need for a COVID-19 vaccine to help address the pandemic.
There's a lot has been made about the fact that the Pfizer vaccine has to be frozen and has to be, I think it's minus 94 degrees or something like that. And the Moderna vaccine does not. Does that make a big difference to you, especially in trying to get it out in mass use?
I think this is where appropriate implementation strategies for vaccine come into play. So when the vaccines get EUA authorizations, then we can look strategically and try to deploy the Pfizer vaccine potentially to areas where they have capacity for storage. You know, for example, our hospital does have that storage capacity. So one could argue that larger institutions, particularly academic health centers that have access to these cold storage freezers, might be able to use that vaccine and deploy it there. Whereas maybe smaller health clinics, pharmacies that might not have these commercial grade freezers, but more standard refrigerators with 2 to 8 degrees storage. So they might be able to use the Moderna vaccine. So ultimately, it'll help us figure out which vaccine would be best served in which storage situation, ultimately to ensure that anyone who needs a vaccine has access to one.
Are the side effects significant?
The side effects from what have been reported, and know that the only data we have seen are the ones that have been reported in both the press releases. They have been relatively mild to moderate. And in the Pfizer press release, if I recall, a few participants had reported grade 3, but that was generally sort of fatigue and headache that lasted for about a day or two after the injections. In general, more so with the second than the first, but still fairly mild to moderate. No serious significant adverse events were reported in either of the studies.
You said that your study is continuing. You're still monitoring the people that enrolled. How long does that continue? As the vaccine gets out into the general population, does that continue to be monitored?
So vaccine safety follow-up will continue to be monitored. And given these high efficacy rates, Moderna, the study team, and the FDA are looking at the data to see how much more long-term safety data are required. Because the FDA has said, and they announced it a few weeks ago, that they wanted a minimum of 2 months safety data for any vaccine before they will consider approval.
So many times when this happens, when something like this is announced, the news business runs right to the competition, the side effects, when is it going to be available? And nobody steps back and takes a look at this and says, wow, this is a miracle. Is that word miracle hyperbole with this? I mean, this may be a record, right?
It is a record, but I think it goes to show our strength as humanity, what we can do when we work together. Because the vaccine development process for COVID-19 has been a Herculean effort. Government, various different agencies within the US government and pharma. So there has been a unique public-private partnership that has ultimately, benefited mankind. So it only shows to say what we can do when we do things together cohesively as opposed to working against one another.
That was very well said. And congratulations to you. This is also a personal victory because you took part in this as well. So congratulations.
I actually want to acknowledge my team and the participants because I think we really owe it to the 30,000 plus participants in Moderna and the 40,000 plus in Pfizer who really stepped up to volunteer to participate in the study so we can actually sit here talking about these outstanding results.
Well said. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Shobha Swaminathan from Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. When we come right back, we're going to check in on another vaccine trial that's going on right now in New Jersey, and they are looking for volunteers. All the details next.